All right. Good evening. Welcome to part 2 of my Eastbound Capital Limited trip of 2007. Most of this is going to be covering B&O Main Line survey between Pittsburgh and D.C. First part was arguably the most interesting. Was last night with the B&O CPLs on the Keystone Sub west of Connellsville. Today we are traveling Connellsville eastward. Even by 2007, a good chunk of the CPLs between Connellsville, all the CPL, well, actually we'll see. I'm not sure exactly when these got zapped. But for many years, the first batch of CPLs on the B&O Main Line to go were from Cumberland to a town called Rockville, and then the next batch was from Rockville to Connellsville, and the final batch was from Connellsville to Pittsburgh. This was before the Conrail split up. It was interesting. If CSX was definitely, this part of the CSX main line was definitely lagging behind the powerhouse of Conrail and its former New York Central and PLL. It was very much a backwater. Mainly had a lot of tower control, and it was in the 90s. It was the site of the last telegraph line in the United States used on a mainline railroad. So it just goes to show that until CSX was able to buy Conrail and really compete on, with with its access to the port of Newark and to a lesser degree Baltimore, which it had, but still to compete with Conrail with a better alignment. No double stacks. This was definitely not seen as a major main line as we know them today. So anyway, Amtrak train is currently stopped at Connellsville. These are the notable CNO bracket mask at Sodom interlocking. Not sure why they didn't go with calling it Connellsville interlocking. I forget exactly when these got zapped, but it wasn't that much longer after this. The major reason the CSX, this is all before the PTC problem, the major reason the CSX was going after this batch of signaling was because it was largely pole line and Rule 251. Those were before you had the PTC as the real motivator to re-signal anything that was Rule 251, and then anything that had a pole line, where you would still see your major returns on investment. So because this is effectively back-to-back with Broadford interlocking, and it also has that short signal block in the middle, that's where you would have an approach medium here, even though there was no even though that intermediate signal did not have a diverging route. It was a short block, so a stop at Broadford would have an approach medium to an approach at Yo. Was it Yo? West Yo. And here we have the entire east end of Sodom interlocking. The west thing was a signal bridge. This one had a bracket mast for the main tracks and that little dwarf for the yard. This is Connellsville Yard. It's one of those wacky yards that mattered more in the days of coal than today. It's sort of like Mechanicville, or I'm trying to think of some other ones. Not entirely sure if I can remember. But there's a lot. Oftentimes you'll find yards in the most random locations on a railroad, just because that's where operations happen to need one. Willard is one, but that's not quite. That hasn't seen. That's still pretty good operation. The B&O had the oddest location with yards. Brunswick, Connellsville, and then the next one after this would be Willard for classification. Connellsville, of course, was stripped of its hump many years. Oh, Cumberland has a yard as well, but that's where you'd expect one. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's not what I needed. So this is what I would like to call, it's not, some people would disagree with my terming this a CTC island. Usually CTC islands are a single interlocking, a siding and two ends. This was in between two big chunks of Rule 251. They had CTC. They had a little CTC thing between Broadford and Green Junction, and you'll see why that is. And here we have the bracket with its, well, little hut cabinet there. And like I said, you got a 5-orbital CPL there at Sodom. Wouldn't be a full complete because it doesn't have the restricting indication. But it was almost as one of it just missed. I said it's almost one of the ones that would have 6. But the problem there, it's missing the medium approach slow, which honestly is like the hardest orbital to get. And here we have the DTC block signs. Now these are mostly removed. CSX got rid of the DTC system. I forget exactly when. I think maybe 2008 or so. Maybe 10. DTC was its own thing in the rule book. They pretty much realized that they could just do that. There was no point besides using track warrants, aka literally they call it they did adopt the Conrail terminology for a Form D. The branding of a Form D, even though Conrail was more involved with that, it made more sense in their rulebook history. But CSX was just like glommed on Form Ds and replaced this whole DTC system. DTC, like I said, is similar to track warrant. Instead of it was a replacement for train orders. Instead of having them write down specific things on a form, they were able to just do verbally over the radio, tell them what to give them authority into or release from blocks, fixed blocks designed by these signs. Generally, track warrants can give them from wherever you have interlockings or station signs or mileposts. So while this was an easy thing for basically transitioning railroads and crews from using train orders to something more radio-based, now that everybody's used to using the radio and doing complicated orders, DTC is really it's a little more brief to use, but it required a whole extra set of rules and could cause confusion. So CSX pretty much went away with it. CSX was one of the only major roads that used it. It was used like by Western roads, but it was generally supplanted by track warrants with the General Code of Operating Rules. There's your Connellsville station there. Alaska Railroad, I believe, is really the only one that still does it in a serious way. like most of these long distance stations, it really only has a platform on one track with duck boards for emergency boarding on the opposite track. That's weird that I don't know why I put this part of the interlocking. Let's put Amtrak's Connellsville station. Connellsville has since gotten a upgraded station. That is, I mean, there's a lot of things of what's a real Amshack. Some of them say it's like Albany or Cleveland or one of those bigger stations. When people say in the 70s, when they said Amshack, that's an Amshack right there. That right there, right this over here, this thing, there, that one. That is what people are really mean when they say Amshack from like old guys from the 70s. Today it's a much nicer facility. They got a grant to upgrade it. You see, it's got like a roof now. Sorry, I got to find the right thing here. There it is. Interesting thing about Connellsville that I didn't know. Go away. Let me see if I can let's get the guy in here. Yep, there's the new station. Really looks nice. I don't think it has a bathroom, but it's got a roof and benches and a handicap thing and Amtrak, whatever. There's your new cantilever mast. Let's see what I can find when that was replaced. Yeah, that was replaced before 2012. All right, next. There might be an Amshack still at Dyer, Indiana, but I'm not sure. Now, I always thought, there's this... For a while, I thought this was an actual tower, but it's not. It's some sort of yard tower. I used to mislabel it rampantly, so let's see what I called it. Yeah, okay, that's good enough. It's basically some sort of yard tower. I don't think it ever had control of any of the switches or signals. Today, it's pretty sure it's still there, but it is not been active or used for some time. That's one of those things. If you lived there, eventually it would might get opened up by people, and you can peek in, but not when you're on the train. Oh, did it get removed? Oh, nope, there it is. Or maybe not. Maybe it did get knocked down. Wait, nope, there it is. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, I guess one of the windows is a window again, so maybe they do use it for something. And they've been putting up moonlights. We got yard air. For those who don't know what yard air is, yard air is a thing that you could have to help charge trains, airlines, especially on a cold day with high leakage rates. It can take 20, 30 minutes to charge a train with compressed air for the brakes, which is a significant amount of time. Yard air lets you, before the engines are really even on it or whatever, you can start they have lines, you can start pumping the train up, from both ends. They're quite common now. It uses the same type of equipment you used to see with pneumatic switch plants. Connellsville Yard used to be classification hump yard. Most of that, the hump, I think the hump is still there, but it's not automated like it used to be. So there we have the middle tower. So you can see how much the yard is now empty. Now it's for maintenance away and other stuff. They still have a bunch of things there. There's the middle tower next to the old roundhouse. The turntable's still there. It doesn't look like it's used much. Now this is the old hump tower, and it's something else. So for the longest time, there's the old hump tower. I think the hump track used to be right there, and then they had an actual honest. That was this is the honest to God classification yard that no longer exists. So it's a hump tower that really doesn't do much, but the windows are there, so I guess it's at least for yard ops. Well, at this time, there was an interlocking tower in there, VI. There was no VI interlocking. However, everything I'm pretty sure in this CTC island, from Broadford, Sodom, Green Junction that you'll see, Bluestone, and Kasparis, all this was controlled from a CTC, a panel machine in VI tower. It didn't really show up. It's one of those weird things that unlike Conrail, which would indicate where things were remote from, CSX never really did that reliably in its timetable. So sometimes it's very hard to figure out who you got to call. I'm pretty sure it was still open at this point in time. I think it stayed open until, this is a 2005 timetable. I'm pretty sure it stayed open until everything was re-signaled. But maybe I could definitely be wrong about when it closed. But I was doing some Google searches, and VI tower, so the top thing would have been the hump tower, and VI is in this area here with the air conditioners. The old sign for the Baltimore service lane, that was a pre-Conrail thing that CSX did. It tried to divide its empire into what they called service lanes. That was one of their little gimmicks. So this would have been the actual hump control thing, and that would have been possibly the guy doing the switches on the bowl. So here we have a flat switcher, number 8527. I know by that it's going to be an SD40. There's the old hump. You can see the grade there, and VI and the hump tower plus VI tower there. Was it 8527? And here we have two more, 8620. A lot of these are SD50s. 8620, and then that's an SD 8107 is a 40. You can tell the SD50s by the increased cooling capacity. Remember they basically did the F block 265 was sort of an upgrade. That got more horsepower out of that same engine with more RPMs. The result was more cooling required. So they needed bigger radiators. By this point in time today, almost all those SD50s have been downrated to 3,000 horsepower from 3,600. There wasn't a lot of reliability on those earlier ones at the higher output. I will say that MPI now has the license to that F engine, and for the MP36 series, they got a pretty good. They were able to do a pretty good job with them. But that was 20 years, 30 years later, after the 50 series turned out to be rather unreliable for EMD. So now we're entering the area of Green Junction, Greene. Another tower I really wish I had. Oh. Uh-oh. Wait, that's strange. Oh, shoot. I know what the problem is. Sorry, I gotta check something here. Might have mixed up some whatever's last night. Just want to check them real quick. Because that would be bad. I know I got those first 12. I'm pretty sure I got that one. Alright, I think we're good. Just wanted to check real fast. Alright, 81. At some point, like I don't have that issue anymore, where the files, when I rotate files, that it changes the date stamp on them, which was, at some point I realized that there was a checkbox to not do that, but until I did, it caused some issues. Alright, I think we're good. Alright. Okay, let me check for questions here. Nope. Any? Cool. Alright. Another quick lineup of power. Looks like we have 3 SD50s and 3 SD50s and 1 SD40. All right, next one. So now we're entering Green Junction, Greene. I do have some better photos of it in other sets. Green Junction did have its own tower for many years. I don't know how that territory was possibly passed to VI, or when, or what that looked like. I've never seen a photo inside VI tower. I've seen like every other tower, like all over the place in this part, except that one. It was almost like this thing that I didn't even know that it existed. And if you had to have me guess, it's because it had a lot of other railroad functionalities and management in there. So it's unlikely that an enthusiast or hanger-on would be able to get in there with a camera. Now, I don't know why employees weren't able to get photos. But not sure. So finally, after just remember, we crossed over at Broadford, and then to get onto the station track side, which is track 1. Correct. Now we're crossing back over to track 2 because it's Rule 251. You can't really, you don't get a choice. You have to go against the current of traffic. Interesting. I haven't taken I used to take this. I used to go through here on a pretty regular basis. Coming back on cross-country trips. I'd start in the west and transfer in Chicago and come all the way back. But ever really since the last of the CPLs went away in 2014-15 time frame, I just haven't. There hasn't been much to take photos of, and honestly, I don't think I've used this in that direction since. Nope, I haven't. Pretty sure I haven't. But I was getting photos through here on a fairly regular basis. So Green Junction was really interesting in that it had these little dwarfs on all the yard lead tracks. It's almost like you'll see it Mexico interlocking at Cumberland with multiple segments to the interlocking. So you have like a yard segment, and then you'd have like the main line segment. When CSX re-signaled this, I figured that why not put dwarfs back in there? That's easy. What they did is they put a bracket mast, a cantilever for the main line, and they put a separate signal bridge here, and it looks ridiculous. Again, note the exits, the random CPL exit signal there. Don't know why it's there. They probably had some sort of thing, but that's what you would get. You'd have interlocking segmentation in a lot of these yard ones. West Conway was the same way on the PRR. Yep. See, there's another segmented. That's on the not main. That's not on the main. That's not for the main track, but that's like one of the yard tracks. Actually, that's like there's an extension track there. Track 4. And note that it has no straight. You can only get medium clear or medium approach interlocking. Medium approach medium, as there's this is back to back with Sodom. Heh. Here's an interesting little bit that I just noticed right now. While most of the switches are dual control, there's one that is not. From this angle, it looks like a 5G. If we go back one, let's see if we can find others. I can't quite tell. That's dual control. That's single control, dual. So there are still a bunch of single control switches in green. Oh, and there's some old bits of yard lead right there. I wonder if those are still there. So anyway, there's VI Tower. Yeah, see? They've got a bracket, a cantilever right there, and then there's a 6-track signal bridge spanning all the tracks, but only has signals on 4. And it looks like whatever that was, a bunch of those were removed. So that's the track 4 I was telling you about. And this is the sort of the extra track right there. Or am I wrong? Yep, there's a sort of an extra. This is weird. What the heck is going on with this thing? Yeah, we're on 2. One more would be 4. Well, who knows? And yeah, those little extra yard switches to go to nowhere. So here we have Green Junction itself. It is one of the 1950s style CTC towers, similar to Mexico. Actually, most similar to Patterson Creek. Although that also was one of those towers that have had the panel for again another smaller CTC project. Similar in construction to the RF&P towers, only these have a flat roof. What the heck? Oh. So that's the question: is that the track 4 dwarf? Kinda, maybe, who knows? Oh, and the DTC block sign for green. And finally, we have on the other side a quite large mast for track 1, a smaller reverse direction dwarf for track 2, and then nothing on at this point. You know, the track 4 one is closer in. And I've gotten pretty good photos of this interlocking over the years. It was always a priority target. So here's always a thing. Track 4 had this weird semi-interlocking on it. So because we're not in CTC territory, things got a little bit wonky. This was a restricted speed siding. It's labeled as bluestone as a control point on track 2. Yeah, I guess that would be. I don't see a whatever there. So that's sort of a holdout signal, so you can come out of the yard. Oh yeah, it's a holdout signal for the yard. So that means you could pull a train out of Connellsville yard for a drill move or a reverse move, and you wouldn't have to deal with any of the entering DTC or track. You know, wouldn't have to give it a train order or a DTC block. This is bluestone. And next, so whatever that was the holdout there, and then of course track 4's got to find a way to get itself back into the main line, and they do that at Kasparis interlocking. Again, this signal is the only this signal is only absolute in the eastbound direction. That little dwarf you see right there. There we go. Those aren't daylilies. It's another kind of flower that grows in this area. I've seen it on the POR main line as well. Not sure what it is though. This is eastbound track 4. Okie dokie. Let's see if anybody has any questions. Oh yeah, I don't empty that right away. And I have all these things backed up. I mean, I pulled off these. Especially these older ones are smaller. I've been dropping them around. So we are going to be going all the way through. So at this point, it's pretty clear that they have indeed. This is now. It used to be that you got CPLs to this place called Rockwood. And this was the point when those signals were replaced, but CSX kept it Rule 251. Oh, by the way, remember I said that this interlocking is in the eastbound direction only because of Rule 251. This is a permanent restricting here, and it's a spring switch. I think this is the point where I realized that the CPLs were gone, and I was done. And then here we have our first signal location. At a certain point, once I realized that they'd gotten them all, I just noped out. I'm like, nope. Now, actually, I should have stayed and got all the photos. No, I did in subsequent years. Part of that was because of the Rule 251. Now, what's interesting is that even when CSX put in bidirectional signaling, And they went in and they double, they still, what is it? They didn't put in any extra crossovers. There's what used to be there's a hand throw interlocking. It's got interlocking signals on all four sides and two hand throw switches. It's bonkers. And I have enough photos of those from later years, but I probably should have stayed and gotten photos here. Now maybe I had breakfast, so that's a big deal. That is an important part. But there was stuff that did get resealed, even though it had been resealed. So there was stuff where the CPLs were replaced, but it was not re-signaled. They still had the original cabinets and relays, and I wasn't quite aware of those, and I really should have put more time into getting pictures of them. But usually at this point in these trips, I wanted breakfast, and usually breakfast would take an hour. This is back in the whatever days. You go get breakfast. By the time you're done breakfast, you're in Connellsville. You get lazy. Let's see how many more I got. Yep, here's one. Next. Note they still have the name. This is Indian Creek. Number 1 cut at milepost 260.9. It's crazy in back in the day how I was so quick to dismiss, the boring, stupid ass color light Darth Vader masks, but the Rule 251, and I couldn't appreciate that. I guess I kind of did, but I really should have gotten more photos of those in their Rule 251 configuration. That was kind of dumb. No, I don't know. Maybe I did. I was in here a lot. There's a curve with a random speed restriction. I probably could figure out today. I would go in and figure out exactly which one that was. Number 1 cut. It's a 30. That's going to be mile 259.1. But I'm going to keep it the same name. Uh, 258.5. These are Stewarton. Another curve and speed restriction at milepost 257. Specifically, probably it's either gonna be, it might be 256.5. Yeah, this is 256.5, so I'm going to rename this. Again, you can see it's a 30 mile an hour speed restriction right there. I mean, this line is pretty slow, which is a shame because it's very fast across Indiana and Ohio on the former New York Central. This is 256.5. Note that the speed restrictions are only in the direction of travel, and they're not back. On a bi-directional line, you'd see two of them. Another little bitty detail that is generally lost in a Rule 261 world. Stull Run, milepost 255. This should be 255 from Baltimore, not DC. There's a few less or more miles to go to on the DC branch. And that's where I sort of got sick of things. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, between there. I mean, it's Sandpatch, Heinemann, all kinds of stuff. I've got those more in later years. I mean, at this point, there was never any CPLs and whatnot. So besides, I did use that without much to see. You know, I'd use that as my breakfast time. Because you'd still had stuff between Cumberland, east of Cumberland. This is CP Virginia at the station with 6664. Oh, a palindrome unit 6446 and a road slug number 2221. That's an interesting little combination there. Definitely something that I would have lost otherwise. So here's a question. How do I discuss this interlocking? Because it's the Cumberland Terminal subdivision, and I don't usually do a lot of that. I'm not sure. I might just... that's going to take a while to load. Okay, whatever. Well, that loads. I'll just keep going. So now we're back on the CPLs. This one being at West Hump, although the dwarf had been replaced. And at this time, Cumberland Yard still did have a hump yard. I think it still does. So we've gone all the way over. Where's Connellsville? So it goes all the way through here, all the way along the river. There's Rockwood. That's where the CPLs used to stop. But again, I didn't have a lot of time to get photos, in that area. Then you're on re-signaled around 1999, 2000. That's where they closed Sandpatch Tower. There's the summit. You go over there. You get into this valley. You whip down here, actually pretty high speed. That's 70 miles an hour in there. Now you're into Cumberland Yard with a shop and other stuff. Oh wow, it's gone. Wow. They ripped out the hump. Because I've actually had video of trains going over that. Oh man, that is such a shame. Ugh. Now you got deadline there too. They're stored locomotives. Now the issue here is I normally would do more about renaming, but I have so many other photos of these that I'm probably going to keep the same name because I did this. These stayed around in the middle of the 2010s, like 2012 or so. So I have a whole bunch more photos of these guys. Actually, they stayed around, yeah, like 2013. So even though they're not named properly, if I try to change the name, I'm almost certainly going to run into issues with conflicts. Here we have, you can see the hump yard right there. It's still there in this. So I'm gonna adjust my cut to make sure I get more of that. I remember taking this route with a film camera. Yeah, see, there's the hump yard. There's the switch pole thing, the hump tower. Man, ugh, can't believe what CSX did there. All that PSR crap. 2431. Is that underpass even used anymore? Nope, underpass is gone. Wow. 2431 is the engine. Just another view of it with West Hump. Yeah, I remember one time when we got into Cumberland early, and you stay there for a bit. There's some padding in that schedule. They got to do an engineer change and everything, and you could hear them and watch them doing the humping operations. They were actually sorting. Some of the cars were flats that had export tractors on them. And we've reached Mexico, which is notably between Wall Street and 84th Street. So another thing I want to check is how I do stuff with Mexico Tower. Alright, how do I do it in this? Yeah, I should really not have that Cumberland terminal thing in it. I think for the Cumberland terminal, I just don't. Yeah, Viaduct Junction, Virginia Ave. Yeah, that goes. This goes away. Sometimes with terminals or junctions between subdivisions, I won't put a subdivision in front of the interlocking. They're sort of neutral. And it looks like I need to change these Mexico names as well. Yeah, a few of them have the underscore, but I really should get away from that. So again, Mexico is one of those. Got to go up to the Cumberland Terminal, Baltimore Terminal, Capital, Cumberland Terminal. Yeah, it was Mexico. It's got a whole yard component, and then it's got like the main line component. You can see how many yard switches have the CPL dwarfs. Well, we have reached Mexico. It is time. We got one more round today. But let's see if people have any questions. Now, a lot of this was taken up by a video. God, a video. They didn't do a great job getting photos with. Now, in subsequent years, I got way better photos of Mexico. I even got out there on an occasion, but I didn't really. You know, it's a very active area, so I didn't really get to go around and do a lot of stuff with it. Let's see. Where am I going? Hello. We'll see. For all I know, they're all EOL, and they need to get replaced anyway. They all got... It just... apparently, I can never get a good handle on what those damn things actually cost. Everyone says they were ridiculously, they cost a lot. So, I'll play the video. You can't really see it. It's probably on my YouTube. This is, again, one of the very first times I started using my video capability. So if you see this, here we are going through Mexico. There's the west end of the interlocking I mentioned. With all that's, it's when I say west end, it's complete. It's got both eastbound and westbound signals. Oh no! I forgot that I wasn't doing still photos. Then I remember. There's the famous Mexico bracket mast. Reversed. I have that in both directions too. Now we're crossing over again. We were on main track 1 to service the station. Now we're going back over to main track 2. There's your yard rigmarole. Again, just all the ways to efficiently move trains in and out of the yard or do drill moves. There's a very good condition Mexico Tower. That's where I cut it. Oops. And I try to get double dip by zooming in to get a picture of the tower and the bracket mast. That's why I cut it where I did, so I would have enough time to zoom and get this picture. As far as I'm aware, the tower is still there. You got a very long receiving yard here, very, very long. I think that's the tower right there. Yeah, I forgot how far away this bridge was from Mexico Tower. But it's still there as of last July. And they also moved the location of, I think, the signals a little bit. No, they didn't. And by the time I was able to get my camera unzoomed, we had already passed the westbound bracket. Note, both these have those 4 orbital configurations because they're part of back-to-back interlockings, or at least with short. Sorry, it's not interlocking here; it's short signal distances between here and West Hump and then Virginia Ave. Between Mexico and the next tower at Patterson Creek, you have this intermediate here. Note again, this had actually been re-signaled for quite some time. Right at milepost 172. Goes by the name of North Branch. They were still using the grade signals here. This is before CSX fully adopted restricted proceed, or at least this was modified before it fully adopted restricted proceed instead of stop and proceed. Which track is that? Oh, it's track 1. And you can see the milepost 172 right there. Here we are approaching Patterson Creek. I've been here exactly once. This was the location of the old Mountain Sub Freight Cutoff. This is when a lot more traffic, cold traffic, was coming off the Mountain Sub, which went to Grafton, West Virginia, amongst other places. So as opposed to having trains go all the way through to into this area here, then to split off at Viaducts Junction, they put a cutoff in. You can see by this little red line through an abandoned tunnel that I have yet to visit. I really need to. Looks like it's pretty well done up inside. 3,000-foot tunnel. Wait, sorry. Patterson Creek cutoff, 1970s, saving 10 miles on a trip in 1902. You can definitely see where it used to be. You go to the terrain, you'll see why. Yeah, there it is. It goes through this giant hill in the middle of the thing. Patterson Creek, although it's really close to Mexico, I guess they didn't want to overburden the operator there, so you'll see Patterson Creek in a second. One sec. Patterson Creek was re-signaled very early on. I actually have some photos of it on film just as these signals were going up, and that was in the early 2000s, like 2000, like 1999, 2000. Yeah, it would have had to have been in one of the 2000 or 2001 or 1999. I took a trip with my friend to Cleveland, and we took some film, with film. Again, I'm going to keep the original names here, even though they are non-standard. Because I have so many other photos of this, plus me being there in person, I'm sure that if I change them, they will collide. Here is Patterson Creek, the tower. This is an absolutely awful thing to be using for the named file or the marquee name. I hope to get out there, so I'm gonna overwrite this. And then we have the westbound signals at Patterson Creek. This is technically the end of one of the B&O, one of the several 3-track segments on the main line between Brunswick and Cumberland. I like to call this the B&O's take on that stretch of PRR main line between Tyrone and Altoona, and you'll see why. Oh, we got some West Virginianites on their horses. Yeah, West Virginia has some issues with motorization, sanitation. I think electronics are banned in a large portion of the state. So, they have to, they get by the best they can. Nothing wrong with horse transport. I'm horse qualified myself. But it's nice to have options. If you don't want to, what is it? You don't want to have to go to work and find out your ride is moody. So here's why I call it the Fostoria of the B&O, because you have this beautiful new tubular aluminum signal bridge with B&O CPLs, and it's on a 3-track main line with bidirectional. If you know Fostoria, that's what they had. That's that part of the PRR where you had the same kind of signal setup. If you see my Twitter account, the background there are the Fostoria signals. And you always got a really neat, you never quite knew it was going to show up on these either, what way traffic was set, what was cleared through. Sometimes you'd see an approach medium on one of these, a clear, you'd see it all, anytime you went by. The last time I came through here with my dad in 2014, this had just been replaced, and oh, that was a sad day for me. I was really hoping to get one more shot on that. Ugh. Oh man, I gotta change this. The Dan's Run signal. It's the westbound. And I do have, again, I have pictures of this in both directions. And here the same thing with the zoom. Man, there was a time where I could probably quote you all these location names especially after I had just gone through and done a doohickey with them. Come on. Next signal, I believe, is Turkey Foot. Despite there being 3 tracks here, that 3rd track is mainly used as a scale track. It is block signaled. I've never been on it or had a train on it, but let me go up to the old Cumberland subdivision here. The 3rd track, yeah, it's only 25 miles an hour. Something would have had to have really gone wrong to put a passenger train on that. Note the approach medium here on the track 1 signal for the 4-block signaling, even though it is pretty far apart. Dan's Run is at 168, and this is 166. It's also, it wouldn't be a downgrade. I don't know why, why this would have been 4-block signal territory, but, it is. Here's the scale. It'll be interesting to see how much, as long as there's coal, you're going to need scales, but I've seen the Buffalo Line ones, I think, got retired. Actually, I'm not entirely sure. When I went out there, it looked pretty, they didn't quite look as in service as they used to be, but you never know. Scale tracks aren't super common. they're pretty neat things to go up and if you get a chance to ever inspect one in person. We're almost done here. In fact, we just might be. All right, I did an extra one earlier, so I'm gonna cut that there. There's a reason I don't want to. It's the next one's the start of another interlocking, green spring, and I'd rather do all that in one go tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to go on the Magnolia, the famous Magnolia cutoff. We'll see. Will we make it to Hancock? I'm not entirely sure. Yes, we will. And Hancock Tower is still open. Phenomenal. So that's definitely going to be a real treat for tomorrow's trek. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get this done tomorrow. I still got another 2 nights worth. Not sure when I'll do them. They'll happen at some point. We'll see. But that's going to be the final run through Brunswick and into Union Station. So anybody have any questions? Yeah, it's not time efficient, but apparently hump equipment really is expensive. But I've never really seen a whatever. But people have attested to the fact that it's expensive. All right, I'm going to head out. Thank you very, very much. And I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll get to Hancock Tower, and that'll be super fun. I'm actually not sure. I got to check my stuff whenever I did that. When did I do this? This would have been, yeah, the summer of whatever. It was my friend was down for an internship, and he had broken his leg at the time. But some point later in the summer, we went out to Hancock Tower. And I think I've gone through those in other points. Let me just check them. Maybe it's worth doing again. But I think I redid all those photos earlier out of cycle. I went there in August 11th. Definitely might be something I want to revisit here. Oh boy. Oh. Yeah, these aren't the greatest quality. They're not the greatest cuts. So yeah, it looks like at some point I'm going to definitely want to come by and redo Hancock Tower. All those photos whenever I get a chance to. All right. Just checking at some of the other things I've done here. Okay. I'm going to head out. All right, see ya. Have a great night.